Everybody, Steve Brzezbrowski. Welcome to tip number 63 in the series 101 Tips to Ace Your Next Promotional Exam. My website, code3firetraining.com, has a lot of great free stuff on it. Check it out if you haven't done so already. And this series is based on my latest book from Fire Engineering Books and Videos, 101 Tips to Ace Your Promotional Exam, as I go through each of the tips and try to share some of the highlights from each of them and hopefully add some additional substance that may not be in the book or build upon some things that may be in the book as we go through. So tip number 63, I've talked about communication in a lot of different tips. I mean, you'll hear that come through in a lot of different tips. Just like in the last tip, number 62, we talked about soft skills and how critical soft skills are. Well, communication is a soft skill. And I'm talking oral communication, written communication, interpersonal communication, all three key important things. So communication is probably one of the biggest things that anyone can do in any rank, but especially someone in a fire officer rank it'd be nice if you're expert at all three, interpersonal, written, and oral communication, but at least be pretty darn good, because again, whether you like it or not, you're going to have to speak to others, your crew, to groups, people within your department, outside your department, sometimes maybe even on camera, whether you like it or not. You're going to have to write things, especially as an officer. You're going to have to write incident reports for every call you go on. You're going to have to maybe write staff reports. You know, writing is never ending, whether it's on a computer, obviously, is writing. Sorry, I'm dating myself, thinking back to typewriters. And if you ever think about what the hell is a typewriter, Google that shit, GTS. But take communication classes, and also interpersonal skills are critical too, because think about it, at a firehouse, you're around people all the time. You got to get along as a team and get to know your crew, know their strengths, know their weaknesses, play nicely in the sandbox with them, all that stuff. So taking communication classes, this may be awkward, or you may not believe me, but when I was going through Cal State Hayward to get my 4-year degree, after I got out of high school, I was scared crapless of speaking in groups. One of the requirements, general education requirements at Cal State Hayward, was to take a speech class or a communication class. I think it was more generic. I don't want to take that because I don't want to say, even if it's a class of 20 or 30 people, I don't want to sit and speak in front of others. So what did I do? I took an interpersonal communication class, which I'll talk about shortly here, but it was my way of getting out of speech. But now that I look at it, that was probably the most important class that I took, interpersonal communications. And I say that to people because I'm not great at any of these. I don't think anyone's great at all three. I mean, I know I have work to do to be a better public speaker. I know I can do better at written communication, even though, I think I do a decent job. But also interpersonal communication, there's always, just when you think you've got it down, of reading people and, figuring out what they're, taking from your message, and, vice versa, there's always something to learn, because everyone's wired differently. Everyone responds to people differently. But looking back from my college experience, interpersonal communication was probably the best class I ever took, because it really exposed me to make sure I'm presenting myself properly when I'm communicating, not just orally, or written. Well, not just verbally, but also through written communication, but how I'm presenting myself, how others are reading me. I mean, look at interpersonal communication. When someone's doing this as you're talking, rolling their eyes, sitting there looking off, they're probably not paying attention to you. Or if you've got your arms closed, someone's probably not paying attention to you. It doesn't mean they aren't, or they are, because there's times where I've been doing this as I'm listening to somebody and they've actually, hey, Steve, am I boring you? What are you talking about? Oh, my hands are crossed. I'm sorry. I mean, being a good active listener, being a good active participant when you're communicating with people, whether it's a one-on-one or a group communication, but interpersonal communication skills. And even if you're not going to college, do some research on that, because it sort of goes back to tip 62, soft skills. These are probably they're the three communication points or mechanisms that are probably the most important for any firefighter, not to mention definitely fire officers. If you are, one of the benefits about going through a college program, whether it's a 2-year degree or 4-year degree, master's degree, or whatever, is I know there's a lot of people that, especially in the fire service, education's not important. You don't need to have a degree to be a good firefighter. Okay, I agree. I'm not saying it's not important. Well, fire officers, fire chiefs don't need degrees. They just need fireground experience. Well, in most departments, the fire chief is drastically different from a firefighter. It's like apples and oranges. What you did as a firefighter to what you do as a fire chief, two different job descriptions. The firefighter's out in the field responding to calls, helping people directly, whereas the fire chief's typically dealing with paperwork, dealing with budgets, dealing with politics, dealing with people at that higher level. And a degree, whether you like it or not, a degree can actually provide a lot of soft skills training because of the things that you're required to complete in a degree program. Like I mentioned, if I hadn't been required to go through an interpersonal or a communication class, I never would have taken it. So there is some benefits of taking general education classes at college. It takes you out of your comfort zone, and it may be what you need to be successful in whatever position you're aspiring to. One of the biggest complaints I hear from command staff officers is that the writing skills of a lot of officers are not where they need to be. And you may go, well, why don't they figure that out as firefighters? Well, think about it. As a firefighter, you don't write that much. I mean, firefighters need to understand email. They may have to send emails, but most firefighters, unless you're the medic, don't really write reports or proposals. Whereas an officer, you're probably writing something every day, multiple times, where there's emails, reports, after calls, training, documentation, whatever it is. And I think written communication is one of the biggest ways that you as an individual can get in trouble, or your department can get in trouble, or both, because of your lack of communication or your poor communication skills. I know it's not sexy and exciting as like strategy and tactics, command and control classes. Those are the fun things to do. But if you know that you're weak or need improvement in written communication, oral communication, or people skills, take the time to seek those classes out. I mean, they may be painful at first, but you'll benefit from those tremendously, at least in your leadership ability. So obviously by now, I hope everyone realizes how important communication skills are, and probably the most important skill, in my opinion, that an individual can possess, as they can make or break the outcome of a relationship, not to mention other important processes. Even if you're not a firefighter, think of it this way: what causes most relationships to break up or struggle or have challenges? Communication skills, talking to people one-on-one, which is interpersonal skills, maybe not writing skills, but oral communication, interpersonal, usually what leads to relationship breakups or challenges. So those two skills, not to mention the written, can be very beneficial on the job, not to mention off the job. So as always, thank you very much for the gift of your time. Feel free to reach out if I can ever be of assistance. Until the next tip, we'll see you soon. Take care, everybody.